cookie?
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Love is not about finding the right person. It's about being the right person first. The most successful relationships happen between two emotionally mature adults, between two people who have the same emotional maturity, who are on a similar path and who are at a similar level. These are people who can take responsibility for their actions. They can take responsibility for their own triggers. They can take responsibility for their wounds. They can take responsibility for their own healing and evolution. You're listening to Make Some Noise Podcast, episode number 664.
Welcome to Make Some Noise Podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here on lesson number 5 on this 10 lesson / episode series I'm doing called Coming Home to Yourself as we lead up to my 50th birthday, which still surprises me to have that come out of my mouth, that I'm going to be 50 years old. I still feel 29. Sometimes my body definitely feels 50 years old, but in my mind, still feel 29. I hope you've been enjoying these episodes. I have thoroughly enjoyed bringing them to you. I didn't know how I would feel doing these because they're longer, they're more robust, they require more digging in and thinking for me. And so I have really enjoyed them. I would love your feedback too, by the way. There's a handful of you who've DM'd me on Instagram, and I really appreciate your feedback. This helps me be of better service to you in the future on the podcast. So please DM me and let me know what you think of these episodes or just the podcast in general. I would so appreciate that. And 2 quick announcements. One, guess what? Long overdue. I am going to facilitate a How to Stop Feeling Like Shit group coaching program. Do you hear that? Did you hear that drum roll? I have been thinking about doing this for 7 years now. 7 years. It's been a long time coming. I apologize for the delay. I just really needed to make sure that work was integrated in me before I rolled it out. I know that so many of you have read that book and loved it and have told me that you go back to it. And I am so excited to be able to facilitate a coaching program live with me, facilitating it, guiding you, hosting you, coaching you. I don't have an info page up quite yet, but I did want to tell you, if you want to make sure that you don't miss it, maybe you miss my emails and want to make sure that you get on it. I'm not going to open up registration for a few more weeks now, but if you go to andreaowen.com/habits, there will be a little button that you push and you enter your email. I will also be sending out special bonuses and a special or very early bird price for those of you who sign up who are on that list. So if you loved that book, maybe you're reading it right now, maybe you read it many years ago and you want to make sure that you get the information for that right away, andreaowen.com/habits. That's where that is. And of course, all these links will be in the show notes as well, so you won't miss them. The other thing is that we're still doing book giveaways speaking of How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, we're doing book giveaways every week as I am putting out these particular episodes. So all you need to do is go to the Wednesday post. I will do a specific post every Wednesday, and you'll see it in there that's the book giveaway post. You'll just have to comment, and I randomly select a winner that following Monday, and you get to pick what book you want me to send you, and I will personalize it, sign it over to you, and get it off into the mail as soon as I can. I appreciate you for just coming to Instagram and interacting with me and everyone else. So that is my gift to you as my birthday is coming up. So those two things. How to Stop Feeling Like Shit program coming out over at AndreaOwen.com/habits, as well as on Instagram, I'm at Hey Andrea Owen to be able to enter to win a free book on me. Okay, let's get into it. I am excited to bring you this episode. Here's the thing. I left my marriage, it's been 2 years now, in January of 2023. Amazing how fast time flies because it kind of feels like it was just a few months ago. It was my second marriage. I walked away from that very, very clear on huge lessons that I have learned from that marriage and my first one, in which I am so incredibly grateful for. So when I knew I was going to do these 10 life lessons on coming home to yourself, I knew that romantic relationships were going to be a part of it. And here's the other thing I know to be true, is that when you're learning about relationships, our best lessons are our own experiences. Truly, having to go through the fire, having to go through incredibly difficult times, having to go through breakups, divorces, those, I think, are our most pivotal life lessons. And at the same time, it can be enormously helpful to have resources that you hear about from other people who have walked through the fire before you, or have walked through the same fire that you have and have looked through different lenses so you can see different perspectives and how that might apply to your life. I do think the most important and the most potent lessons are the ones that we learn ourselves from our own lives, but it's an extra layer of great help to learn from experts, to learn. I love John Gottman's work based in science, to be able to create the map for yourself that you want to either create in a current relationship that you're in, or create that for yourself for a future relationship that you might have. And that's what I did. The latter is I walked away with these major life lessons and with such gratitude for the people that I had been in these relationships with, and such gratitude and compassion for these younger versions of myself, these former versions of myself, so that I could create a map and hopefully go on a different journey with someone else. Which reminds me, speaking of having the map and doing it differently, I've mentioned that I am in a new relationship. I've been referring to him as Dr. Fox. Dr. Fox and I have been having some conversations about maybe doing a limited run podcast series where we talk about our relationship and how it started and the very intentional things that we have done, the conversations that we have had, the plans that we have made, the check-ins that we do, the tools that we are using to what I like to describe it as building this relationship. And one thing that I have said to him from the beginning is, I'm pretty sure I have the map. And what I meant by that is how to do this really well, how to do an intimate, monogamous, committed relationship well. I just have never gone on the journey with anyone. And that's what I think that we would want to talk about on a podcast that we would do together. So my question for you is, would you be interested in listening to something like that? I'm thinking that I would have him come on more or less as a guest on my show, maybe once, probably twice, to do sort of a preview of what we would do, and then get your feedback, get maybe your questions, get your suggestions of what you would want to hear us talk about. And we would do a limited run series. It's kind of a big commitment. So I want to make sure that you guys would even be remotely interested in that. I know there's a lot of relationship podcasts out there, but it's been such an honor to go on this path with him. And I would love to share what we have learned so far. So as I'm recording this, in the very beginning of March, we just celebrated 6 months. So it would be sort of a reflection on the first 6 months and how we've done it. So please let me know. DM me on Instagram. All right, back to the actual lessons that I'm going to talk to you about today. So I have 7 key things that I think are imperative to work on to build a healthy, lasting, loving, safe relationship. And as I mentioned, I believe this topic matters so much because a lot of our health is determined by the health of our relationships. And I know now that picking a partner, whether you decide to, especially if you decide to get married, whether you decide to get married or not, picking that partner is one of the biggest decisions that we'll make in our life, and one of the most important. It has such an impact on us, such an impact. And I don't think that anyone underestimates that. I know none of you do, but I know that one of the things that I've been really paying attention to as I have been on my own evolution is what needs to happen for us both to be happy, to be able to come together as two whole people to make it work. And not just make it work, but make it thrive. And I've been married twice. I like to say I love marriage so much that I keep trying to get it right. And definitely my perspective has shifted. Previously, I sort of bought into the all you need is love. You know, if we have love, then we can work through anything. If we want it bad enough, then it will just work out somehow. If it's hard, like it should just be easy. It should just be easy, and it should be effortless. Like if we are truly in love. I also kind of bought into the myth for a long time that we have this sort of like one perfect soulmate or twin flame, if you will. And I don't believe that's true anymore. And also, before I forget, next week, I think I am going to put out an episode, a whole episode dedicated to when it's time to go, when it's time to leave a relationship, not only like what to do before you make that big decision, but how to do it and the most mature way forward. And also how to walk through the grief of losing a long-term relationship. So that's next time. I get that question a lot. How do you know when it's time to go? And so I decided it's going to be sort of a part 2 to this episode. So I have 7 things that I'm going to talk to you about. And as usual, there is a worksheet that goes with it. There are 7 prompts for each of the 7 things. So if you go to AndreaOwen.com/664, or in the show notes, there'll be a button to push there as well. You can download the worksheets that go with this episode. Every single one of these episodes has a worksheet that goes with it because I want you to be able to do the work. All right, number 1 is around emotional maturity. It's about owning your shit. And I heard a quote so long ago. This might have been even in the beginning of my second marriage, that someone somewhere said, the best time to work on your marriage, and you can replace marriage with relationship, the best time to work on your relationship is before you're in the relationship. And that might not be convenient for you. You might be already in it. That's okay. But I love that they were pointing out that it's not about your partner. The health of the relationship first is about you. And I wanted to have that be the very first key step that I was talking about here, because I, for so long in my first marriage especially, thought that it was all my partner's fault, that all of our problems were his. And if he would just change his behavior, then we would be better. And looking back, I don't know if we were sort of equally at fault. I still kind of think he had more flaws than I do, if we're being honest. However, regardless, those bled onto me, and I did not react in the most mature way. I did not ask for change in the most mature way. I didn't handle it well. So at the end of the day, the only person that we have control over is ourselves. Love is not about finding the right person. It's about being the right person, first and foremost. I'm going to say that again. Love is not about finding the right person. It's about being the right person first. The most successful relationships happen between 2 emotionally mature adults. It's not that you get to a certain level and then it's like, oh, that's okay in terms of your emotional maturity. But at the very least, I think the most successful relationships happen between 2 people who have the same emotional maturity, who are on a similar path and who are at a similar level. More specifically, what that means in terms of emotional maturity is these are people who can take responsibility for their actions. They can take responsibility for their own triggers. They can take responsibility for their wounds. They can take responsibility for their own healing and evolution. If you find someone who has that on their dating profile, you meet them and you're like, okay, they weren't joking with that. That's unbelievable. I knew that if and when I ever got into a new relationship, that was hands down going to be an absolute non-negotiable for me. I would not continue to date someone who was dismissive about that, who, either they didn't get it, didn't think it was that important, didn't want to talk about it. Like, no, that is not for me. That is absolutely not for me. Having self-awareness, having self-regulation, and what I mean by that is the ability to regulate your emotions. And that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. I'm just kind of giving you an overview. Having the ability to recognize when you're projecting old wounds or any wounds onto your partner, taking responsibility for that, that is priceless. That is absolutely priceless. So number one, having emotional maturity. It's not about finding that perfect person that's just right for you. It's about being the right person. Because when you figure out who you are in terms of the person that you want to be in your relationship, then you will be able to determine what your non-negotiables are. And this does not matter. I'm not just talking to like all the single ladies out there. I'm talking to people who are already in a relationship. You can do this inventory. You can do this inventory now. Given what you know about yourself in terms of your own self-awareness, how you regulate your emotions, how you take responsibility for your own stuff, given all of that, given how you show up as best you can to your partner, if you had to start all over again with this person, knowing what you know now, what would your non-negotiables be? What are the things that you would see, if anything, that you would see in your partner and say, I don't want to step any further into this relationship with you because I cannot be with that. That's a boundary for me. That might actually be helpful for you. Okay, we're only on number one and we need to take a quick ad break. This might be a long episode, you guys. Buckle up. I'll try to keep it around an hour. So when we get back, I'm going to start talking about communication. We'll be right back. I want to take a minute to talk about something I've struggled with, my relationship with food and my body. In my 20s, I battled an eating disorder for years, and finding the right treatment was frustrating. One of the biggest barriers was that insurance wouldn't cover it just because I was still having my period. I had to navigate so much of it on my own, and I don't want that for anyone else. Eating disorders are so common, yet we don't talk about them enough. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Equip, a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that helps you recover at home. No putting your life on hold, whether it's work, family, or the things that bring you joy. Equip gives you a full care team, a therapist, dietitian, medical provider, and even a mentor who's been through recovery. They treat people of all ages, all types of eating disorders, and best of all, is covered by insurance and has no wait list. If you or someone you love is struggling, don't wait. You deserve help. Get a free consultation with Equip today because healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. Visit equip.health/noise to learn more about Equip's virtual accessible eating disorder treatment. That's equip.health/noise. Let's talk about perimenopause and menopause. If you've been feeling like your body's betraying you, you're not alone and you don't have to suffer through it. That's where MIDI Health comes in. MIDI connects you with expert clinicians who actually understand women's midlife health. There's no guesswork, no dismissing your symptoms, just real science-backed solutions to help you feel like yourself again. They treat things like hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness and libido changes, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, and more. Booking a virtual visit is fast and easy. There are no membership fees, no hidden costs, just specialized care covered by major insurance providers. And if you're out of network or uninsured, there are affordable cash options too. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're back. Number 2. I was going to say honesty and authentic communication, but I'm going to say honesty, transparency, and authentic communication. So there's a difference between honesty and transparency. Transparency is more about, well, let me start with honesty. Honesty is when someone asks you a question or has an inquiry about something and you are honest with them about it. You tell them the truth, even if the truth might hurt. Transparency is when they don't have to ask. Transparency is when maybe you talk through things in real time about things that are something that's bothering you, instead of having to wait and throwing hints and acting a certain way in hopes that they ask you, what's the matter? And then you're honest with them. And that's one way to do it. But transparency is when you tell the truth from the beginning without the other person having to even ask you. That's how I look at the difference between those two. Relationships thrive on that, even when it's hard, uncomfortable, or messy. The conversations that I've had with Dr. Fox in the last 6 months, the ones that have been the most uncomfortable are places where we have had to be transparent and honest. And I mean, it makes my stomach hurt even just thinking about it. So the questions become, are you speaking up when something bothers you? Or are you pushing it under the rug for fear of them perceiving you a certain way? That's a shame trigger, by the way. P.S. Did you know that I have a program on shame resilience? I sure do. DM me. Are you speaking up when something bothers you? Or are you expecting them just to know? Are you expecting them to read your mind? Are you being passive aggressive or acting a certain way so they ask you? These are the types of things that I'm talking about. And also under this umbrella is things like avoiding the scorekeeping trap. I'm using air quotes here because so one of the things that I've committed to doing in this relationship is expressing needs before the resentment builds. So previously something would come up and I'm like, I don't like that, or that bothers me. And I would then get in my head about it and think like, well, I don't want him to think that I'm difficult or needy or dramatic or sensitive. I want to be known as I want to be like the chill girl, the cool girlfriend. And it's like, the truth is I'm not that girl. I'm not. I'm emotional. Sometimes I get anxious. I have many, many, many years of stories and history of being hurt and abandoned, and those have stuck with me. As much work as I have done on them, and I've done a lot, and I've come a really long way. Some of them still stick around and make me get squirrely. That's what I call it. I get squirrely. And so therefore I get in my head and I'm like, I don't want to say this thing. That is not helpful, because what ends up happening is I tuck it away. I put it in my back pocket. It doesn't just go away. It goes in my back pocket. And then when it happens again, then that's twice that it's happened. And then I'm mad at him and resentful to him because now it's happened twice when I never said anything in the first place. So the commitment that I made, I said, I can't promise that I'm not going to do that. My first commitment is that I'm going to try my best to tell you things in real time as they happen, as soon as they come up, instead of waiting or trying to be the cool girl, the chill girl. I might not do that right every time. So my commitment is, if I bring something to you, if it has happened previously and I didn't tell you about it then, I will not hold that against you. I will not say, so you did this thing this week and you also did it a month ago and the month before that. That's not fair. That's on me to bring that to you. And so I will take responsibility for the fact that I should have brought it up sooner. I'm not going to land on the sword over it over and over, but I'm going to acknowledge it. And he was so thankful. He was like, thank you. Because in my past relationships, that has been a thing where I didn't know what the problem was. And then my partner brings it up and then they say, oh yeah, this happened before, this time, and this time. It's like, well, okay. It's a small example of how doing things like that can build resentment, and then it can become something that it doesn't need to become. Another quick example is that I have committed to, I told him on our very first date, you guys, I asked him, I said, so tell me what your exes would say about why your relationships ended. And he was like, excuse me, what? Like, I was not there to have small talk. You guys know me. The whole first date and how we met is wild. If we do our podcast episodes together, we can tell you that story. But I wanted to know. I was curious. I don't want to know what you said, why the relationships ended. I would love to have conversations with these women. If I'm going to date you long term, I'm a girl's girl. I want to know what they said about you. And so that was the conversation that we had. And I told him before he even answered, I was like, I'll tell you what my ex has said about me. It's the same thing. So clearly there's a pattern and it's something that I need to work on. And and they're right. Mine is control. I get so squirrely and scared that I'm going to be left, that I tend to do whatever I can to completely steer the boat in the relationship. So when I find that I am doing that, and the good news is that I've been doing my own work for so long, I sniff it out so fast, fairly fast in some instances, where I am trying to control instead of just surrendering and trusting my partner and letting them and just, having a good conversation about it. So my commitment is curiosity over control. When I find that I have an agenda, I have a clear agenda of how I want this to go and how I want him to behave and how I want him to handle something, I get curious instead. And I could have a whole podcast episode on what that looks like, but it truly is about, again, that emotional maturity, knowing your own stuff, as well as having commitments to specific things and getting very honest about them. When I say very specific things, I mean your specific triggers, the places where you might get squirrely. Maybe that's one of yours. By the way, control is going to be one of the modules in the How to Stop Feeling Like Shit program. If you want to join us, AndreaOwen.com/habits. We'd love to have you. All right, number 3. This was a hard one to learn around self-trust and independence. More specifically, this is around not losing yourself in the relationship. Raise your hand if you tend to do that. If you tend to go in, fully commit your whole self, your whole life, fold yourself into a relationship with someone. I have come to find out that the healthiest relationships happen between two whole people. And this I could, again, have an entire podcast episode about. If you go back to lesson 1 on self-abandonment and self-trust, this might help you. Really, it's not two halves trying to make a complete circle, a complete relationship. No. It's two whole people. So this is why maintaining your own passions, maintaining your own friendships, even your own hobbies, and I think the most important thing, maintaining or starting, if neither of you have started, your own personal growth and evolution is essential for long-term success. It's absolutely essential. And sort of doing that out loud for each other, your own transformation and evolution. Sometimes also you can have the best relationship. You can have a great relationship and you might outgrow each other. It happens. That's the reality of it. And that is something that, I've had to contend with in this new relationship. Like I have no idea how long we're going to be together, if it's going to be forever, if it's going to be temporary. I do not know. And that is scary to think about 100%. But I do know that however long it goes, I do not want to feel like he is the answer to my life being complete. I know that for me personally, I knew that I did not want to enter a new relationship until I felt what it felt like to feel complete, to feel whole as a human. And if this is a continuous journey, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm complete and I'm good now. No, it's a continuous journey. But that was something that was a non-negotiable for me. I think a way that, a sort of a question that I asked myself, or that I sort of posed, I guess, was, as I enter a new relationship, do I believe, even if it's like deep down, that this person is going to solve all my problems and make me happy to the point where it sort of quote unquote saves me? Because that's what I thought in my previous relationships. I had to know without a doubt, if this person I'm in a relationship leaves me, even if he hurts me, I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to go through it. And I know I'm going to be okay on the other end, because I am a whole ass person outside of him. That absolutely, again, was a non-negotiable for me. This is also around the topic of codependence. Like if you struggle with codependence, which is also self-abandonment, this might be a place for you to look. And the question, because like if you on a journaling prompt for it, the question is, where are you self-abandoning in this relationship? What behaviors do you do that point to self-abandoning? That might help you sort of connect the dots in terms of what work you need to do in order to, that is totally outside of your partner, what work you need to do in order to feel complete on your own. What decisions do you need to make that are different? All right, number 4. Number 4 is conflict resilience. Conflict resilience, it's you two versus the problem. I hesitated to even have the heading be conflict resilience. A lot of things that we define as conflict in a relationship are just uncomfortable conversations, hard conversations. Conflict, and I do think semantics matter. I really do. Conflict, I think, should be reserved for when you are having a disagreement that maybe perhaps goes against each of your values, and you're trying to unpack that and see where you can come to a compromise or looking at it differently or whatever it is that you need to do. I truly believe that conflict is what makes or breaks a relationship is how you handle conflict, hard conversations, messy conversations, uncomfortable talks, however you want to name it. It truly comes down to how you handle it. What I decided to do was, my hope was that the next time I entered a relationship, we could set that up from the beginning, because habits get formed. They get formed essentially a culture is created in a relationship. That is one thing that I have learned. And you can call it habits, you can call it a culture, whatever it is, but these patterns develop. I also truly believe that you can change patterns. It does not matter how long you've been together. If both of you are ready and willing to practice new patterns, you can do that. It is all about how you handle it. Avoiding fights isn't the goal. I thought one of my marriages, we fought a lot, and the other one, we didn't. And I assumed that the one where we didn't fight was so much better. It was like, oh, this is a sign that the relationship is healthy and it's going to continue to be healthy. What I realized years in was that it was a lack of communication that was happening. It was avoidance that was happening. So it's like, I almost feel like people who quote unquote fight and argue are healthier than the people who don't at all, because at least you're communicating. And then the switch, the fix, if you will, comes to how you fight. Because avoiding fights isn't the goal. It's the repair that matters so much. Esther Perel talks about this a lot in her work. And so do the Gottmans. And I have learned so much from those experts on relationships, but it truly is how you repair the disagreement, the conflict, whatever it is. It matters so much. The perspective shifting from me versus you to us as a couple versus the problem. So it becomes like, how can we work as a team to solve this thing? One of the things, I don't remember who talks about, or maybe I'm sure it's multiple experts, that relationships have a soul. And so it's actually like a triangle. There's, if you're in a monogamous relationship where there's two partners, it is you, your partner, and the relationship. And they're not the same. They're truly not the same. So again, it's shifting from me versus you to us versus the problem. It's a team effort. I also want to point out that shame, defensiveness can destroy connection. When you find yourself jockeying for who's hurt the most, for throwing it back and forth of who's done worse things to each other, that's not, you were lost. You need to find your way back to the conversation. One of my problems that I own now was my need to win in an argument or a hard conversation. Many, many years ago, especially in my first marriage, my first long relationship, I wanted to win at all costs. It was an ego thing for me. I felt like if I could argue better, if I could quote unquote win, whatever that looked like, even if it was just him kind of walking away and surrendering and like walking away from the conversation and saying like, I'm not doing this with you anymore. This is stupid. I felt like I'd won. Even if we hadn't really come to any good conclusions or apologized or anything like that, that was my goal, was winning. And that will destroy a connection. It will absolutely destroy a connection. So perhaps the lesson here is looking at where you get triggered the most and where you don't show up as your best self when it comes to conflict. I'm going to say this one last thing about conflict resilience that I have done in my, albeit short, relationship with Dr. Fox, is that when I find myself getting lost, when we're having a hard conversation, and I have noticed that we've kind of gone around in a couple circles here, is for me to immediately look at, am I trying to control this? Or at my very worst, am I trying to win? Has this become more about like me feeling like I need to win or control this in any way? And if I even catch a whiff of that, I will most likely point it out and own it. And then also take 5, 10 giant steps backwards and say, okay, what is the goal of this conversation? What are you hoping to accomplish from this conversation? And giving him a moment to answer me, because he probably doesn't even know. And then I say like, okay, well, here's my goal here. Like, it's like, where are we going? It's like sometimes you get into these hard conversations and you both have your eyes closed. You're just trying to feel around. So it's like, open your eyes. Like, what is the goal of this conversation? Where are we going? What are you hoping might happen here? That's curiosity over control. That's what curiosity over control looks like in action. Okay. So that's number 4, conflict resilience. Number 5, this goes back to what I talked about a little bit in 2 episodes ago around surrender. That was lesson number 3. There was so much in that episode that can be pointed back to relationships. And so I'm going to talk specifically around surrender in a romantic relationship. The first thing is that love isn't about controlling or micromanaging your partner. Who knew? That took me a minute to learn. It sure isn't. It's about trusting them. It's about learning to trust them while staying grounded in your own needs. So the difference between healthy surrender, which is what I've been mentioning, letting go of the need to control everything, versus self-abandonment, which is allowing your partner to do whatever they want and just say that you trust them to do. That's sort of the opposite side of the spectrum. Knowing what that difference is, that is some hard work and takes a lot of introspection and conversations. I'll give you what I hope is a simple example here. So in this particular relationship, we are still, I guess what you would say, dating. This is interesting. I haven't done this in many, many, many years. So we live apart, and we have whole ass lives that are separate from each other. And so if I was in a place of, I'll start with self-abandonment. If I was self-abandoning and I was just allowing anything to happen with no boundaries in terms of how often we see each other, then that would look like I would leave it completely up to him. I would always just wait for him to tell me when he wants to see me and things like that. And then I would name it in like, oh, I just like want him to take the lead. But yet I am self-abandoning because I am not communicating the things that are important to me and my needs and how often I want to see him in order for me to feel connected to him. I would also be self-abandoning by trying to be someone I'm not. Again, like going back to like, I want to be seen as like the cool, chill girl. That is self-abandoning. That is not trusting myself that I know what is best for me and intuitively leaning into that. So the opposite end of that, which is also self-abandonment, is trying to control everything, is micromanaging it, feeling anxious and not communicating really well and just trying to sort of like manipulate time and dropping hints and things like that. That is also self-abandonment. So healthy surrender would look like letting go of the need to control everything while also naming my needs. If he does not make plans with me for a week, so healthy surrender would be letting him know, hey, I would love to see you this week. If you have time, anytime between Monday and Thursday or Friday, here are the times that I have. That for me is healthy surrender. And then also letting go to, if it means anything, if we aren't able to see each other, trusting that he will communicate to me if something is actually wrong, instead of making up a story that something is wrong just because he's like, I am slammed this week. I don't think I'm going to have time to get together until Friday night or Saturday morning or something like that. That is an example of what healthy surrender versus a couple of examples of what self-abandonment might look like. Because control comes from fear. Control comes from the fear of uncertainty and the massive, when you get to be almost 50, we have some stories. We have some history. We have some history of being hurt. We have some history of being abandoned, the fear of being blindsided. What I come to know, and this is the sort of like, it's this almost cruel joke from the universe, because the kind of love that I'm after requires trust. You cannot get around it. I have to trust him and I have to trust myself. Equally important. And first I knew I had to walk in trusting myself. Dr. Fox and I have had conversations about this, about how healthy it feels for me to walk into the relationship trusting myself. Is it perfect every day, every week? Fuck no. Do I get wobbly? Absolutely. I do. My work in those moments where I get wobbly is to look in the mirror. I literally do this, you guys. I look in the mirror and have conversations with myself about how could this be different if I truly trusted myself? What are the outcomes that I'm worried about where I know I would be okay if I actually leaned into trusting myself? That comes from learning how to surrender. And it is not easy. Lord, it is not easy. I want to not step over what surrender does not mean. So when I say surrender, I do not mean that you ignore red flags. I do not mean that you ignore your intuition. This does not mean surrendering and allowing your partner to do whatever they want, even though it might hurt you. Of course, we need to let them do what they're going to do. And sometimes that might be shit behavior to you, and it's going to need to be addressed. Surrendering does not mean accepting disrespect. I just want to make sure that that is very clear. Surrender in a relationship, in a committed relationship, means letting go of rigid expectations of how things should be, is getting curious in those moments when you find yourself having these expectations. It's allowing space for your partner to be who they are, not who you want them to be. That was a hard lesson I had to learn. Radical acceptance. That is radical acceptance, and everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves it. I had to learn that the hard way. It's just, here's the thing too. When you surrender to allow your partner to be exactly who they are going to be, who they're committed to being in your relationship, how they're committed to showing up as, sometimes that means that you need to really ask yourself the question, well, if this is it, is this a relationship that I want to stay in? I've had to do that before. Radically accept my partner, and then in the next breath, make the decision, if I accept you as you are, which you deserve, absolutely, everyone deserves that dignity. If I do this, then I cannot be in this relationship anymore. So sometimes surrendering will point you into a very big decision that is uncomfortable for you to make. Surrendering is also trusting that if a boundary is crossed, you will handle it instead of trying to preemptively control them. I did that for 13 years in my first relationship. Boundaries got crossed over and over and over again, and I tried to control them instead of just letting him and then leaving the relationship. This is tough work. Okay, to wrap this part up, number 5, the art of surrender. I got a little heated on this one. Boundaries and surrender. Boundaries plus surrender equal freedom and security. Your own freedom and security. Boundaries and surrender equal freedom and security. Knowing where your lines are while allowing the relationship to flow. That is one of the most vulnerable things I've ever done. Knowing where your lines are and being clear on it while allowing the relationship to flow. You know why it's vulnerable? Because your partner and the relationship might go outside of the lines. And I don't have any control of that. That is on them. Okay, wrapping up that part. We need to take one more ad break, and when we get back, numbers 6 and number 7. Be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Ever met a foundation that does it all? Say hi to NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Makeup meets skincare in a bottle. It evens skin tone, blurs imperfections, and has a natural radiant finish. Plus, it's formulated with skincare ingredients to help strengthen your skin's barrier. With a newly expanded shade range of over 40 radiant shades to choose from and buildable all-day wear. NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Find your perfect match.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
All right. I love this one because it's a little more touchy-feely. Number 6 is deep respect and mutual appreciation. This relationship from the get-go has been drenched in gratitude. And I'm going to tell you where it came from. It came from my former relationships. Because as I, of course, felt like the shame and stigma of having, quote unquote, 2 failed marriages and have had to walk through the grief of those relationships, respectively, as well as carried some anger and resentment towards them for not showing up as I wanted them to, wanting to control how they showed up, and they didn't. They fell short, and here we are, and I'm having to go through this grief, and I'm having to do this thing, and I'm having to be the lady with all the ex-husbands. However, when you get through, you got to go through all that muck. And then my hope for you is that you can see the goal, getting to a place of gratitude for your partner and the lessons that they showed you. And I'm at a place now where I'm like, those relationships were a success. I lasted 10 plus years with these people. We built a beautiful life together. We had a lot of difficult moments, but for the majority of them were fantastic. The not so great moments did lead to the deal breakers that ultimately had us part ways. But for the most part, we built a beautiful life. My hope is that you can say that for your former relationships. Knowing that gratitude was so important for my own work to look at those relationships, I knew that gratitude was going to be helpful in any new relationship that I had. Because showing up for someone day in and day out is immense. I'm going to get to that in a second. Love is a choice. It's not just a feeling. It is a verb. It is behaviors that we do, not just things that we say. It's not just a feeling, an emotion that we experience. It's a verb. It is an action word. At its worst, a long-term relationship, you can almost, and I hesitate to use this word, but it's almost as if we sort of dehumanize our partners. And this, a better way to describe that maybe is just taking them for granted, is like they almost become like a piece of furniture in the house, and it becomes more of like a roommate situation or a friendship situation. And sometimes that can be great. I don't mean to totally shit on that, but being friends is important in your romantic relationships. But what I have come to know is that these small daily acts of love, of appreciation, of gratitude, of verbal affirmations matter so much. And I also want to say that, one of the places that I saw this in action are my friends, Amy and Ken Smith, who've been together for decades at this point and continue to show up for each other with these small acts of love. And it's been over time. And I've watched it be such a pivotal and important part of their relationship. Here is the perspective in this new relationship that I have. And maybe I'll have a conversation with you all at another time of how when I was single, I experimented in the world of polyamory for a while. I wanted to see if that was for me. And ultimately, at least at this time in my life, it was not. which brought me to this very important thing, this perspective that I have in this new relationship. And this is, I think, can be for any relationship. If I am asking someone to be in a monogamous, committed relationship with me, and they're asking the same thing of me, in a world where we have so many choices, what a gift is that? I've known for a long time, many, many years, that I don't think as humans we're actually like meant to be monogamous. If we were, as soon as you fell in love or said words that were commitment to the other person or put a ring on your finger, as we traditionally do, then that would shut off, right? Like the attraction to other people, the thoughts of like, well, that person seems like they'd be great. Or worse, that person seems like they'd be better than my current partner. That would go away if we truly were meant to just be with one person. So I'm not going to get into the biology of mammals and stuff like that, but this is just my opinion. I feel like we're not necessarily biologically wired to be with one person. So if you make that commitment, if you choose to do that when your partner has so many other options, what a gift they are giving you. And what a gift I am giving my partner. So that being said, I am going to drench this in gratitude. I am going to thank you so much for this. And this is why I created an entire document called Devotion. And like 2025, regardless if I was in a relationship with Dr. Fox or not, he knows this. Devotion, it's more specifically devotion to myself. And part of that is if I'm going to dedicate so many hours of my day to thinking about this person, to building a relationship with this person, it's going to be part of devotion. One of the aspects of that is being demonstrative with how thankful I am that you have chosen to be in a relationship with me. You have so many options. You have so many options to put the work in with other people. And you have chosen me. I am, till my last dying breath, I am going to thank you for that. Because how easy is it for us to feel resentful when we show up as best we can, when we are putting in the work in our relationship, and it's first of all, not reciprocated can be detrimental, but not acknowledged. That, to me, is a path to not being fulfilled. And I've been in that place. I have been the person who didn't acknowledge and wasn't explicitly grateful. And I've been the receiver of that on the other end as well. And it's just not fun. And it is, in my opinion, can erode a relationship. So that is what I mean when I say deep respect and mutual appreciation. And number 7, and this is sort of looking to the future in your relationship, is having a shared vision and growth together. Because a relationship is going to have a really hard time thriving if you're growing in opposite directions, and eventually will probably either get really rocky at best or ultimately not work out. And even if you've been together for a long time, you can course correct and do this. Checking in regularly with each other, having rituals, having meetings on the calendar where you are asking questions like, are we still aligned? Do we still want the same things? What are our values in terms of this relationship? Where do you see that I have shifted? Where do you see that you have shifted that you want to articulate? I mean, so many questions that I should write a book about it, that you can do. And Dr. Fox and I have done this, and even in the short time that we've been together, has had conversations like, what do you want in a relationship? Like, what do you want long term? And of course, things evolve and change, and it needs to be flexible. But where do you see yourself? Like, where do you want to be? Who's the person? This is one thing that we asked each other recently. Who is the person that you need to be in order to be the best version of yourself for us? Does any of that scare you? Is any of this going to be hard for you? Is there anything that would be helpful for me to support you in that way? Like, these are the types of questions. And you could ask ChatGPT to help you on this. Like, what are some questions that would be good if I had a meeting with my partner or my spouse, and we've been together for 10 years, we've been married for 15 years, where we could do a check-in with each other? That you can get great questions in that way. But when you do that, you're making space for the evolution of both people in the relationship. And you're also, you will probably be able to see problems, if there are any, coming down the pipe. You could call this, the relationship check-in. Maybe you do it every 6 months. Maybe you do it once a year on your wedding anniversary, where you sit down and you can make a Google form and have each other fill it out, or just have a conversation over dinner one night over it. But I think that however you create what you would call a shared vision, that is going to look unique to you and what you want for your relationship. But the point is so that you grow together and you know these things about each other. Like, these are such important things that I never thought of over the last, 3 decades that I've been in relationships, that I'm thinking about now, in an effort to not only look at potential problems that could be coming in the future, but also plan out what we both really want in a relationship. We are building our lives around each other. We should both be clear that we want the same things when we're building said relationship around each other. If I could sum it up and make it simple for you, your relationship check-in tool, because I don't want you to be overwhelmed with too many questions, but the relationship check-in tool could be 3 questions. I'll keep it simple. The questions could be, what's working in our relationship? What's not? And what do we both need more of? Maybe those answers aren't the same, but what's working? What's not? What do we both need more of? Again, if you go to AndreaOwen.com/664, there's a worksheet that will outline questions, like journaling prompts for each of these 7, so that you can do the work for yourself and hopefully take the work to your partner if you are in a relationship. But if you're not in a relationship, these would be great for you to answer as a single person, so that if and when you are ready for love, you are better prepared. All right. That's it. I think I made it in just about an hour. And so, recapping the main takeaways: healthy love, healthy relationship takes emotional maturity, great communication, self-trust, conflict resilience, healthy surrendering, and daily effort, choosing each other every single day. I would be so curious which one is the most interesting to you, which one is the hardest for you. Come to my Instagram post the Wednesday that this comes out. I think it's going to be March 12th, if I am not mistaken. And you can also enter to win a book. I know I already told you that, but I would love to hear from you about these episodes. I appreciate you listening so much. I so appreciate when you share these with your friends and family. That matters so much to me. As well as, again, if you want to be the first to know about my new program, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, go to AndreaOwen.com/habits so you can be the first to know. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate you so much. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans, and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free, and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.